listen, spend some time and figure out, why are you doing this? Why are you about to embark on something that you haven't done before, right? And it just really starts with the education piece. So whether it's taking in some content, reading a book, going to a meetup, it's not going to be overnight, but you have to start and then just keep on building on that momentum, keep on getting educated, and then you have to take the action to get over that brick wall.
Welcome, everyone, to the Red List Traveled Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a previous career and left that career to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we have Tim Lyons. Tim, we're so glad you're with us. Thanks for joining.
Likewise, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, Tim. Well, thanks again for being on the Road List Traveled Show. To start with, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how long you were in that your first career? And
yeah, absolutely. So I still actually work in the New York City Fire Department. Blessed and grateful to have served for 17 years. I work as a lieutenant now in the borough of Queens. And for about 9 years, I was a registered nurse on the side. A lot of firefighters have side jobs because we do 24 hours on, then we got maybe 2, 3, sometimes 4 days off in between. And a lot of us can't sit still for that long. So I went back to nursing school and I became a nurse. There was a bunch of other guys who did that. And I like to joke that I was pre-med for about 15 minutes in college before I joined that fraternity. So I had an interest in that. So was living the dream, right? Had 2 jobs that I loved. There was purpose, there was passion, there was fulfillment. Every day was different, and I started having kids. And once the kids were able to, I have 3 little girls who are 11, 8, and 3 now. When the 2 older ones were small and I worked a lot, it didn't really matter, right? I mean, it mattered. I missed them. But when they started to be able to talk and start to go to school and have things that I was maybe missing, or they didn't see me for a couple of days at a time, it started to wear on my wife. It started to wear on my kids, started to wear on me. And I knew I had to make a change. So I retired from being a nurse a couple of years ago, about 2.5 years ago at this point. And I got into real estate. Started off with the 3 family, needed that proof of concept. I did a little better on the cash flow, did a little better on my taxes. My wife was bought in, right? So, but realized very quickly that buying 100-year-old 3-story wood frame structures, it just wasn't going to move the needle. And I was going to run out of capital after maybe the 2nd or 3rd purchase. So discovered multifamily, and I'd be happy to jump into how I got into the multifamily. I know this is the show about leaving your W-2, and I'm very, very close, but I'm also close to a pension and benefits for life. And you just don't find that anymore. So I'm going to try to get to 20 years and take it from there.
You don't walk away from that. No, absolutely. No. And again, even though we say that leaving, it's people that are, you're on a path, you're on a different path. There is something that is, you've left nursing, which again, you've made a decision there for the family reason, and you are eventually going to, retire from the fire department. So that's great. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I got into, listen, like I went through this little transformation and it really happened very, very quickly. And I was defiantly committed to the outcome. I wanted to know, how do people do it? How do you scale? If I hear all these different podcasts, and it was teachers, CPAs, physicians, engineers, whatever, pick any kind of occupation. And I kept on hearing how these folks went from single families to multifamily or some other commercial space. And I'm saying to myself, like, that sounds complicated, spreadsheets, net operating income, IRR, all these, cap rate expansion, compression, like what the heck are these guys talking about? But I was college educated. I've been reading the Wall Street Journal every day for the last, 17 years, and I started that habit in college when the paper was free for me, and I just never shook it. So, I knew that I could figure it out, but so I went down the coaching. I went down the coaching and mentorship kind of pathway, got myself aligned with people that were in the space, that they were doing the thing that I wanted to be doing. They were successful. I had a great team to kind of rely on. And that's really the way that I was able to kind of just grow in an exponential manner from a 3-family, rental to where I am today.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Again, learn the craft, learn from somebody else. There's a saying that learn from your mistakes. well, I'd rather learn from the mistakes of others. And that's what you get when you work with some kind of a mentor, somebody who's been there, done that. You see their success. You can help, catapult yourself by learning, advanced methods early. And that makes all the difference. So Tim, as you look back perhaps to maybe your firefighting days or your nursing days, is there a funny story you can share along the way, something that made you scratch your head?
Oh boy, do I have to keep it PG or can I get crazy on this one? I mean,
PG.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? The thing about being a New York City firefighter, and I've always kind of worked in, how do I say it? Poor neighborhoods, socioeconomically depressed areas, right? So with that comes, violence and gangs and all sorts of stuff, right? So, it's a comical place to work. And I tell you what, if you ever want to just laugh your face off, you just have to go into any firehouse in their kitchen. The kitchen is where like the hub of anything is. And I mean, listen, you're putting me on the spot right now. It's a lot, but I laugh more than anything at work, and whether it's in the kitchen or it's in the field. But I'll tell you a quick little story. Right outside of our firehouse, when I was a firefighter, a person had gotten shot, unfortunately. And that happened a lot, right? We joked that we were the hot corner, and we used to have bulletproof glass on the firehouse. Wow. And this guy was carrying on. He's going, "Oh, that's my girl. Oh my goodness, my girl got shot. My girl got shot." And then all of a sudden, a really big dude came up to the crowd, and he goes, "Yo, that's my girl." And he goes, "You're right." And he took off running down the street, and we were all just dying laughing. It was just like, it was a surreal moment. I mean, here we have somebody shot. Luckily, it was like a leg wound, wasn't a big deal, to us at least. And there's like all this drama surrounding the shooting scene. It was just, it's funny looking back. It wasn't funny maybe at the time, but
yeah. Well, you definitely have to find humor where you can, and certainly I'm sure like you said, when you're not out on a call, you're in wait mode, and you got time to kill. So there's definitely, I'm sure the kitchen is the hub, and I'm sure the stories are monumentous that you've heard over the years. So very, very cool.
If you want to laugh or eat well, you have to come to a firehouse. So anytime you guys are in New York, you just come on over.
Awesome.
Well, excellent, Tim. You touched on a little bit on what was a kind of a deciding factor to get you to transition. More time, I guess, more control of your time, correct? You want to spend more time at home with your young family as your girls were growing up. Was it what I guess gave you the idea? Was it podcast, or where did you get the idea to transition to the multifamily side, and how you picked multifamily kind of over office space, industrial, warehouse, self-storage, anything else?
Yeah. So just for a little background, I'm a super conservative guy. Like, I grew up in, very modest upbringing, and, money was always kind of like an issue, right? If we talked about it, probably wasn't a good thing. Right. So coming up in that context, I really kind of just subscribed to the go to school, get a good job, max out your 401k, buy a house, like the whole traditional money route. So July of 2019, I was on a family vacation, and I had Rich Dad, Poor Dad in my firehouse overnight bag for over a year, and I never read it. But I brought it on vacation, and then I couldn't put it down. And a day or two later, when I had read the book, it was as if the lights were turned on, the curtain was pulled away, and I could see clearly for the first time. And I know that sounds a little bit dramatic, but that's how I felt, right? And then I suddenly became a voracious reader and consumer of content on podcast and Audible and, YouTube. And I just didn't even know what existed out there. I mean, the meetups, the conferences, I literally felt like I had no idea that I was missing out on so many things. And because of that, I started waking up, super early, because I needed time. Like, you can't just wake up with the kids and then the day starts, and then you don't have any time to do other things. So I became committed to the process of learning and becoming a student and finding out what it is that I needed to know. And the more I did that, I felt like there was stuff that I didn't know, right? You don't know what you don't know, right? So that's really what I dove into. And really, in a quick side story, when COVID hit, I just left the hospital to focus on real estate. I just joined my mentorship team, my coaching and everything. I was really excited to get started. 3 weeks later, COVID came on shore, and we were going to hashtag flatten the curve for 2 weeks, right? Well, with that, I work in a very poor neighborhood now where it's people on top of people, and COVID spread like wildfire. People were dropping dead in the street. We were doing CPR. It was as if there was for about a month, there was no fires, there was no car accidents, there was no automatic fire alarms, no gas leaks, no anything else. All we did was CPR for 24 hours straight, and nobody was making it. Usually we can get pulses back on certain people, right? So with that, we didn't have a lot of information. My wife and I decided, because we had a brand new baby at home, we didn't really know a lot about COVID. So I moved out of my house for 9 weeks and didn't see or touch my family. No hugs, no kisses, nothing.
Wow.
And I moved into my mother-in-law's house, and she moved into my house. And during that time, I just woke up at 5 or 6 in the morning, and I stayed up till midnight, and I just read, and I took in content, and I started calling brokers, and I started calling bankers, and I started calling investors, or people I thought were going to be investors. And I just totally came out of my shell. And I credit that time with, almost being like a little residency, right? A little 9-week, like focused, education and action period. And that's really where I, began Cityside Capital, my company, and really kind of took off because of that little, that little piece of the puzzle there. But yeah, I mean, does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, wow. That's great. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, again, quite a circumstance that you dealt with. And again, we know I'm actually a volunteer ski patroller, and we're equivalent to a basic EMT, but again, we know others, nurses, doctors in the medical field, not in New York City, of course, but other areas that really have basically PTSD after, having to do what they did around, trying to serve the community. And it was a pretty tough thing. Wow, that's incredible. And again, it was awful that you had to move out from a new baby and your wife, but that was probably the safest thing to do in considering circumstances. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. With that being said, right, with all that being said, we, and when I say we, it's my brother Greg and I. Greg lives in Virginia. I'm up here in New York. So we both have W-2 jobs, and we started this company. And to really answer your question from the last time, we saw the value of multifamily because, hey, listen, you can go buy 30 single family homes, right? And you're probably going to want to buy them in a similar type market. So you have some scalability, right? Because, you can have 30 different roofs, 30 different boilers, all that stuff. But if you get into multifamily, and once I got over the hurdle of learning the language of multifamily, learning how to underwrite, learning from, all the mentors and coaches that I had, seeing how they did it, it made so much more sense. Like, why would you buy 30 single family homes if you can get 60 under one roof, or in 3 different buildings maybe? So now you only have 3 roofs to do. And so I bought into that, right? And then all of a sudden you start to learn about resiliency in downturns, right? Because everyone's so risk averse, and I was risk averse, and I'm super cheap, right? And but guess what? Like, in a recession, the A class renter goes to the B class asset, and the B class goes to the C, and the C can go to the D. And like, once I was able to really wrap my head around that, and communicate that to investors, which was really going to be my strong suit. And if someone told me I was going to be focused on, raising equity for commercial real estate deals a few short years ago, I would have told them that they were crazy. Yeah. But yeah, so, once I understood the history of multifamily, the history of commercial real estate, how it can benefit you, what are the benefits of it, what are the setbacks, what are the risks, and was able to wrap my head around it and then communicate that to others. It was apparent that this is where I belong, this is where I want to stay. So yeah, that's how we got into it.
That's great. Yeah. What class do you guys usually focus on? Are you C class, B class? You guys have a preference?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, the day, like when I got into this, right, COVID was just coming on shore, and those were, I think, the heyday of like the refi and roll, right? Get that B or C asset, stabilize it in 18 months, refi your money out. But that really kind of came to a head, right around COVID, because people were saying, well, wait a minute, what's going to happen with rent and eviction moratoriums? So there was a flight to quality, right? So people were then trying to get that A class asset. And in that flight to quality, I think people were really hesitant to undertake a heavy value add or even a moderate value add. And we were a part of that. So, we kind of did maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 syndications during that time. And they were either light value adds or, newer type construction in a decent, MSA that had population growth and job growth and all the metrics that we all look for. Right now, I think in the last 6 months, we've taken on a little bit of heavier lifts. Okay. Because, as we've gone through COVID, we kind of had that, the multifamily was resilient. I mean, the collections rates of low 90s through a pandemic is incredible, right? And then the higher class of asset you had, the more collections you did have, right? So I think going through that in the beginning of my career was super helpful because there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of, doubt and fear really around, real estate and what was going to happen. So going through that was huge. And I'd say right now we're going to be focusing on, C+ to A class, probably like everybody else. But you know what? The conversations I'm now having with investors really centers around cash flow, because in the cap rate compression markets that we're kind of operating in, cash flow can be tough to come by, especially year one, right, during the stabilization period. So, so we are looking for higher cash flow deals, but it's just it's definitely harder to come by.
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah,
it makes sense. So, and by the way, Rich Deporte, again, I think everybody hopefully has read that book. It's incredible. And again, there's just such great nuggets in there throughout that Audible, I listen to it a couple times a year just to kind of keep mindset refreshed and all that good stuff. So, so Tim, as you talked about your education process, you talked about kind of, you realized you had the epiphany to start really moving toward multifamily. So when you started making that shift, were there some obstacles that you can kind of talk about that you encountered?
Yeah. So, for the longest time, I identified as Tim the firefighter, Tim the ER nurse, right? So I was not Tim the investor. I was not Tim the millionaire or, decamillionaire, right? And I think that was really hard for me in the beginning because, when you hear about real estate, it's something that other people do. It wasn't something that I grew up with. It wasn't something that you can really do largely in the Northeast, right? Because the prices are so high. The landlord, tenant laws are such that, it's not really that sexy to invest in the Northeast. By and large, you can do it. So really stepping into that mindset and that identity of real estate investor was a big limiting belief of mine. And then who's ever going to invest with Tim? Like who's ever going to invest, $50K, $100K at a time with Tim, the ER nurse, and Tim, the firefighter? But once I really stepped into that role, because I became the authority, I spent my time and my resources on getting educated and actually putting my money where my mouth was and doing the thing that other people were afraid of doing. So when I realized that, real estate is a team sport. I don't care how you slice it, right? Real estate is a team sport and everybody has their spot on the bench. We're a big sports family. So a lot of the analogies come down to that, but capital raising was going to be our superpower, right? Greg and I grew up just outside of New York City. Greg played college basketball. He's done all sorts of things in college sports coaching on the Division I level. And he did some real estate development out in Boise, Idaho, before settling back home in Virginia. So he had that background. And, for me, at least, like everybody's always, listen, we're all rowing in the same direction, right? Everybody around us, like we all want to have a nice life. We want to do well for our kids. We want to have the vacation. We want to pay the bills. We want to have passive income, but then passive income, like really nobody knows how to do it, or it sounds foo-foo, or it sounds fake. And you got to work for what you get. You can't get anything, handed to you. And by and large, that's true, right? But if you really take that one step further, that there's tons of opportunities out there, you just have to be known, liked, and trusted by your investors, right? And if you are the expert authority on something, then that's how you can, build a business. That's what we did. So we realized we can raise capital just from our inner circle and our ecosystem. But the problem is you can't just raise capital for deals and get paid for it, right? That's selling securities without a license. And at the time when we realized we wanted to focus on capital raising, 2 short years ago, there was a couple of folks in our industry that were being investigated by the SEC for capital raising practices. And that just didn't interest us. We wanted to sleep well at night. We were not interested in get rich quick. We were not interested in any of that. So we kept on hearing about a broker dealer, arrangement. And we're like, what the heck is a broker dealer, and how do we do that? So we dove in, and as fate would have it, we had a warm introduction to a broker dealer that was kind of getting started in the private placement space that we wanted to play in. And it was perfect timing for us. So we ended up getting our Series 82 license and our Series 63. And now we're registered reps of a broker dealer that focuses solely on multifamily, self-storage, and industrial properties.
Very nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
Well, Tim, I guess along those lines, would you look back? Would you say your first victory in that new path? I mean, it could have been the initial one, or the first successful capital raise, partnership, and the deal. What do you look back to and think is your first real victory that kind of solidified that you made the right choice?
Yeah, I would say it was like my first couple of deals, right? The first one, I told so my coach gave me the opportunity of a lifetime to join him on a 43 unit. That was basically just like a one-off deal in a market that he was going to be moving to in Pennsylvania. And he gave me the opportunity of a lifetime to join him on that project. So at the end of the project, after the due diligence and the financing and all the good stuff, he said, Tim, can you raise any money? And I'm like, dude, I honestly, I really don't know. I'm like, I'll try, but do not count on me, please. Don't give me any allocation, nothing. So, and again, I had some limiting beliefs. So I had my Yahoo Mail account, and I emailed maybe 40 people that I thought had money and would be interested in an opportunity like that. And we raised $150,000. And I think, it wasn't a big amount of money, but it was a huge victory for Greg and I to say, you know what, we were able to present people. We probably had horrific phone calls. I'm so glad I don't have them recorded, but I mean, it was a start, right? Yeah. And then the second deal, we did over $500,000. And then we just each successive deal, we're like, wow, people really kind of want this opportunity, but they wanted it from us. It didn't matter, about the asset. It didn't really matter about the market. They wanted to hear what Tim and Greg had to say about the deal and why we liked it. So that's really where we get the idea of doing a capital raising business. But yeah, that was our first big win and a real confidence builder.
Right. That's great. Yeah. Like you said, I'm starting from, just from the basics, right? I mean, you didn't have your company at this point, a company name, anything else. You just a list of people that knew and liked you and trusted you and built from there. Very organic growth. Yeah, that's great.
Nice. So, Tim, as you think about your new path, is there something funny that you can share along the way?
Oh boy. It's funny because I still work as a firefighter, and I'm a lieutenant, so I'm in charge of the guys and the girls in the firehouse. And when I started doing the real estate stuff, their eyes kind of peek up, and they're like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And I see you on social media. And, are you kidding me with the podcast, bro? So, I'll walk into the firehouse and they call me Lieutenant Madoff after Bernie Madoff. And they'll ask me how my Ponzi scheme is going, and, joking around. So, I mean, it's poking fun, but at the end of the day, then they're all texting me privately, hey, how can I get involved? And, how does it work? So it's fun.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, excellent. Well, Tim, where are you today in your journey? You kind of have gone through the progress. You got your series license now to broker dealer affiliate, all that. Where are you right now in your current business model?
Yeah, good question. So we've had a crazy amount of growth, and I'm so super grateful about this opportunity that we've had. But we just hit over $700 million of assets purchased with our strategic partners, which equates to, I think, about 4,500 units. And that would be just shy of 2 years. Right now is 23 months in the business.
Wow.
we've raised millions of dollars, and because we have our licenses, we've had the opportunity to connect with, other broker dealers across the country, other registered investment advisory firms, pension funds, family offices, and specifically right now, we're getting a ton of business from 1031 exchange folks, because listen, right now it's a tough market, right? We're doing all cash deals sometimes, or they're moving too quickly for the 1031 exchange investor to really identify and do their proper due diligence. And, all of a sudden they're brushing up against the deadlines, and then they buy something that they don't really want, or it was a bad deal, or whatever. So there's ways to structure a tenant in common agreement with bigger syndications. So we've been having a lot of success with that to date. We just, we have our goals internally about raising capital. We're constantly pushing past that. So we're really excited. I mean, I think if you've seen the carnage and the bloodbath in the stock market and the bond market right now, I think people are starting to really kind of feel, if you're a true investor, not a speculator, but if you're a true investor, you're really kind of opening your eyes up to what's available out there. And, passive investing and syndications and real estate funds, they've been around for a really long time. But unless you knew somebody who's really, truly doing it, you really didn't have the opportunity to know what's available to you. And I think starting in 2012 with the advent of the 506C offering and, being able to advertise and talk about it a lot more, I think we're just getting started, to be quite honest with you. Yeah. A lot of this happens around the internet and social media, and the millennial generation. That's how they make their introductions and their relationships and stuff like that. So I think we're just getting started with this space.
Nice.
Great. Yep.
Yeah. Nice. Tim, as you're carrying forward in what you do, both at the fire department as well as in the real estate side, is there something that you can share that you do to give back to perhaps the community, to others in some fashion?
Yeah. So at this point in my career, I still take all the phone calls, right? So a lot of people either hear me on podcasts or at meetup groups, and they want to kind of know like how they can replicate my success, or how do they get started in real estate. And I think it's people have been so giving to me in my journey, whether it's been paid coaches, unpaid coaches, mentors, really sharing best practices, being super, super generous with their time. So I'm really trying to do that, number one. Number two, I'm at a point in my career where, now I can spend some time. My kids are a touch older, right? So I actually just joined the Young Professionals Network of the Tunnel to Towers organization, which is an organization that basically pays the mortgages. One of the things they do is they pay the mortgages of our fallen soldiers and first responders across the country. So something near and dear to my heart, and just an incredible way to, support those that are doing the thing that means so much to me.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Well, Tim, is there something you've recently implemented in your business that's helped you grow and scale?
Yeah, so many things. I mean, I think I mentioned once or twice in this podcast that I'm a cheap guy, right? So I hate spending
You're
money.
Not cheap. You're price efficient.
So we've finally kind of, since we've grown so quickly, we've kind of realized that we just need a lot of help, right? So we've engaged with different marketing companies and folks to help us, with some of the task work. So we've hired a lot of our taskier type stuff out, which has freed up Greg and I to really do the thing that we do best, which is make connections, establish relationships, stuff like that. So, I mean, that's just been huge, and we're just kind of getting started. So this is, it's exciting.
Great.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Difference between working on your business or in your business, right?
That's right.
You need to focus, like you said, to grow it versus just being the day-to-day minutia of it. I guess it still needs to be done, but like you said, you can offload that in highest and best use of your time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it sounds like you do this a lot, but the next question is, what advice would you give somebody who was considering making a path change?
Yeah, I think the thing that holds everybody back is your psychology. I think it's Tony Robbins that says, life is 80% psychology and 20% tactics. And I think people really want to focus on the tactics and not the psychology. So I would just say, listen, spend some time and figure out, why are you doing this? Why are you about to embark on something that you haven't done before, right? And then the antidote to fear is education. And it just really starts with the education piece. So whether it's taking in some content, reading a book, going to a meetup, the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, right? So it's not going to be overnight, but you have to start, and then just keep on building on that momentum, keep on getting educated, and then finally you're going to run into a brick wall. You have to take action. You have to take the action to get over that brick wall.
Yeah, there's another expression around a fear that I think came from Grant Cardone. He basically says, rob fear of its greatest resource, and that is time. You're afraid to make the phone call? Do it now.
Do it now.
Stop sitting there and thinking about how your full layout of the conversation. Make the call. Go.
I love that. Yeah. A lot of people get turned off by Grant Cardone because his enthusiasm, or whatever you want to say. I love it because I think he has great content. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, what's the best way for the listeners to reach you and find out more about what you and Cityside Capital is up to?
Yes. So you can head over to our website, which is citysidecap.com. And then also check us out on the Passive Income Brothers podcast on all the major platforms. And my email address is just simply tim@citysidecap.com.
Great. And we'll put links to the show notes below. Make it easier for our listeners to reach out to you. Well, Tim, we really want to appreciate you being on the Road Less Traveled show. We had a great conversation with you, and wish you continued success.
Guys, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come on. And I hope that your listeners get some value from our conversation today.
Absolutely. We really want to thank you, Tim, for being on. We'd also like to thank our listeners. Please continue to give us a 5-star rating so we can bring you more great content like Tim Lyons today. We'd also like to thank Park Capital Partners that sponsors the show, and remind everybody about two things. First of all, Park Capital Partners, we have the Park Capital Value Add Fund, which is a 506c fund that's available for investors, accredited investors today. And then finally, we created last year the Park Capital Partners Foundation. This is a 501c3 nonprofit that is designed to give back. A couple of things about that, just very briefly. First of all, Bill and I fund the foundation through Park Capital Partners. So all the money that's given goes to do its best work, which is to help others. Second, we give a portion of our profits. Third, we give personally to it. And finally, when our investors invest with us, we make a donation to honor that investor from a pre-selected list of 15 different charities to honor those investors. So please join us, reach out to say hello. Again, we're happy to talk with anybody at any point, parkcapitalpartnersllc.com. And thank you, folks, for joining. And remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.